Hey everybody, what's going on? Hellbait here, bringing another video from Grab the Lantern today. The mid-scope update for Syndra has been revealed. It's actually on the PvE right now, and there has been a whole change list posted over on Twitter. In the off chance that's not on the PvE, I actually don't remember where it is, but I'll have it linked down in the description regardless of where it ends up, either way. But I'm really excited to talk to you guys about this. I'll be going through the entirety of the changes of the mid-scope update and let you guys know what it's going to mean for the character, as well as what I think of the changes overall. For some context, I used to play a lot of Syndra. She was my first ever main, and I've always sort of maintained a bit of an affection for the champion, so really excited to delve into the changes today with you guys. Just as a reminder, I'll be going a bit into the weeds on this one, so we will be talking actual numbers, so I'll try to do my best to break it down as much as I can, though, for you guys. Without further ado, let's get started. Syndra, for a while, has just been a champion that's been in a really difficult spot, and I think that Riot have sort of found a niche for her as this hyperscaling, late-game, burst mage, carry-type champion. And to do this, they've actually fundamentally reworked the way in which Syndra's passive works. She now has a brand new passive that sort of changes up. Right now, when Syndra upgrades her abilities to their final rank, they gain an additional effect as well. This is now no longer the case, but her abilities still upgrade at a certain point. Now, whenever Syndra damages an enemy champion, or levels up, or kills a cannon minion, she gains Splinters of Wrath. And the reaching breakpoints on these splinters upgrades her abilities one at a time. This is not selectively like Victor's passive. Essentially, when you hit breakpoint 1, your Q upgrades. When you hit breakpoint 2, your W upgrades, and so on and so forth. Generally, this I think is fine. The loss of choice is totally okay because Syndra's players were already maxing Q first in every game regardless. The W and E, there was an argument to be made there, but generally you were always going to max W second and then your E third. So this sort of progression is totally fine. And it does mean that because this is shard based, that it's not actually tied to levels. Theoretically, you could max your R before you hit level 16, which is actually kind of nice. Additionally, if you hit the maximum amount of stacks, you get a bonus, you get 15% bonus ability power, which is absolutely massive. If you buy a DEATHCAP on this champion following this rework, you're going to be doing an absolute ton of damage. Now, the way in which you gain stacks, of course, you are killing a cannon minion, leveling up, or hitting a champion with 2 separate abilities within 4 seconds of each other. This means if you do something like Q an enemy and then throw a minion at them, that within 4 seconds, that's going to give you stacks. The number that you get for interacting with champions increases with Syndra's champion level. The other amounts are all flat. However, she gains 5 stacks per level up. This means that if you don't ever interact with enemy champions at all and miss every single cannon minion, you're going to be guaranteed 90 shards just by leveling up alone. Which also, at least as long as these numbers remain accurate, it guarantees that all of your basic abilities will upgrade throughout the course of the game, and you only need another 30 stacks besides that in order to get the extra ability power and the ultimate evolution as well. So really sort of backloading Syndra's power here and gaining a lot more of it behind gaining these shards. Of course, you're going to gain a ton through leveling up off the bat, but then as you approach the later stages of the game, you're going to have to interact with champions or get cannon minions in order to continue to max out your abilities. I think it's kind of a neat way of not gating Syndra hard behind leveling up, but allowing her to gain stacks in additional ways, which I think is quite nice. Another important part of this ability is that whenever you gain shards by damaging enemy champions, you actually restore a small flat amount of mana, which is really, really nice and allows Syndra to be able to maintain her mana pool a lot more throughout the laning phase, as opposed to right now where she can burn through it quite quickly while she's trying to harass down her enemies. Moving on down to the Q, and these changes to the Q are going to look really, really weird, but hang with me until we talk about the ultimate. The Q's mana cost has been decreased, and the duration on the spheres has gone up, but the cooldown has also been massively increased from 4 seconds to 7 seconds, which means that it's going to be really, really hard to get multiple spheres down in the early stages of the game. You sort of are going to press Q once, and that's pretty much the only sphere you're going to have to work with. That said, the ability upgrades at 40 splinters to have 2 charges, with a second cooldown in between each, which allows you to actually spam out spheres quite nicely, especially if you're thinking at level 6. If you've been able to gain 40 shards by then, you will have the 2 Q charges. You can press double Q on a champion to gain an additional splinter off of them for your passive. You can double Q them and then use like an E in order to get a big stun and go into the ultimate, which is guaranteed to be a 5-sphere ultimate because of having the 2 spheres out already. It's quite nice. That doesn't sound particularly powerful, but again, bear with me until we get to the R change, because I think it's going to be a really, really net buff to Syndra overall. But you can kind of see how this is nerfing a lot of her laning power. Syndra won't have the ability to harass you down with Qs like she used to. and force enemy champions to lane under a hail of spheres. Instead, Syndra is going to have to be a lot more measured with how she uses her Q and where she's actually pressing the button, because of the fact that her spheres just aren't going to last very long. It's going to be literally impossible for her to have more than one sphere down at level 1 until she has at least some ability haste, or gets the ability upgrade. But again, we'll talk about why this isn't going to be the case forever for those of you who are already like Syndra is a dead champion. Syndra's W has had some small quality of life tweaks to make grabbing spheres easier and prevent her W from fizzling if you try to grab a target that's in the process of dying, but otherwise it hasn't really received any changes. This upgrades at 60 splinters to deal 15% bonus true damage when you hit enemies with it. This isn't a big deal. Technically, the upgrade is a very slight nerf to what it is on live. Right now, I believe it converts it to 20% true damage as opposed to 15%, but this has a better AP scaling, which again reinforces Syndra is going to be a late game champion following these changes. Again, basically nothing has happened with this ability at all. Syndra's E, on the other hand, has had some pretty big changes. The damage on her E has been reduced, as well as the stun duration, but the base cone width is now similar to her passive upgraded version on live. That means that if you have a rank 5 E on live, Syndra's E on PBE right now is the same width without the upgrade. It's actually slightly bigger. It's gone from 34 degrees all the way up to 56 degrees. By comparison, a rank 5E on live right now is only 51 degrees in terms of its width, which means that Syndra actually has a very large cone to work with throughout the game. And additionally, when you upgrade it by hitting 80 splinters, it upgrades itself again to go all the way to an 84 degree cone, which means that you have a ginormous AoE to hit enemy champions with, or just to kick spheres around. That's going to be a really, really big quality of life change for Syndra. It doesn't do as much damage, but it's sort of reinforced as the 1-point wonder of her kit. You put a point into it, you don't have to worry about maxing it, you don't have to worry about getting enough splinters to upgrade it because you're not getting that much more value out of it. You already have the upgraded E that you're used to on live starting from level 1, which is really, really nice. So I really like this change here, but again, it did come with a very slight damage down, and I'll talk a little bit more about why that's irrelevant when we get to her ultimate, which looks like we're here now. Now, the ultimate has had a very small amount of damage reduced per sphere, both the percentage and the base damage. But most importantly, her R now passively grants her Q extra ability haste, up to 30 at maximum rank. And this is why the extra Q cooldown is sort of irrelevant, because even assuming Syndra has no other ability haste in her kit whatsoever, or in her build whatsoever, her cooldown on her Q is basically the same as what it is right now on live, which obviously you can then decrease further with ability haste. And you have 2 charges, which means that 7 or 8 sphere Syndra ults are actually completely on the table for this champion now, which is huge, as that's a massive amount of damage that Syndra can put out. It's sort of no wonder why they're nerfing the damage on this ability baseline, because she's going to be able to guarantee those high value ultimates way, way more easily following these changes than she can right now on live. Even better, if you upgrade this ability by hitting 100 splinters, it now executes enemy champions that are at 15% max health. That is crazy. I can't count the number of times enemy champions barely survive a Syndra ultimate, and then she's sort of lost her value, right? Her whole reason to exist is fragging an enemy champion, a high-value enemy champion specifically, at the break of a fight, and if she doesn't do that, she's not that useful. Now, having that execute built in means that she has a lot of reliability, especially because she can stack up these really, really big sphere combos, which then, if you were gonna survive with a little tiny bit of health left, no, actually you're not. You're just straight up dead because of the execute bonus. Now, this does require 100 splinters. This means that you're actually never guaranteed it in a game, because even if you hit level 18, you're not going to hit 100 splinters. You have to have gotten at least 10 stacks from other sources, which means that if you hit level 18, it's all but guaranteed. If you don't hit level 18, you're going to have to work for it a little bit, but I really, really like this change here. I think it makes Syndra's ult a lot more reliable, and again, because a lot of the ability haste is tied to this ability's rank, it means that the 7 or 8 sphere combos are sort of off the table until much later in the game, unless Syndra specifically itemizes for CDR. If she's not and goes for the full AP route, though, she'll be able to compound that with the bonus percentage AP that she gets off of her passive at 120 splinters, making her a really powerful late game character. This actually gives her a good amount of flexibility. You can build penetration and ability haste just for the sort of mid-game fragging potential with really powerful ults, or you can go late game and say, I'm just going to have so much AP that anything I do to you is just going to straight up kill you. I really like what this means for Syndra. So overall, this means that Syndra has lost a lot of her early game power. She can't really force you to lane under a hail of Qs. But also, she's gained so much more late game power. She gets her ability upgrades significantly earlier right now. Again, even assuming that all you're doing is leveling up to get shards, you get your Q level up at level 8, which is a level earlier than you should. You get your W level up at level 12, again, a level earlier than you should, and you actually get your E level up a level before level 16. Obviously, that's ordinarily when you would get your ultimate upgrade, but that's totally fine. Fundamentally, it means that Syndra is getting more of her power earlier in the game, and also has the ability to go further beyond when she gets 120 splinters and has that bonus 15% ability power. I really, really like these changes, and I think it does solidify Syndra as a late game scaling pick. You're not playing her to win lane now, you're playing her to survive lane and reach the point at which you're going to be doing a ton of damage, getting big sphere combos, and doing lots of damage to squishies in particular. I'm a little disappointed that Riot didn't lean more into the gravity mage role that Syndra had during her development, but it seems like they're edging more towards her emotion magic concept that she got in her most recent lore, so that's totally fine. And in general, I am just a huge fan of what these changes mean for the pick. So you guys love to know what you think of these Syndra changes down in the comment section below, especially if you main Syndra right now. I'd love to hear your guys' take on these changes, if you like them, if you hate them, if you wish Riot would change the numbers around a little bit. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. If you enjoyed the video today, go ahead and leave it a like, and if you really enjoyed the video, consider subscribing. I upload a video every Monday, Friday, and on patch days as well. Once again, thank you guys so very much for watching. I do appreciate it, and I'll talk to you all later.